I want to make note of the fact that I'm one of 8 individuals lucky enough to be involved with the selection process each year. Along with myself, 5 other people are with us here this evening. Pat Garvin and Ryan Craig from the athletic department, Jake Creer, the director of alumni relations, Art Westphal, along with Barry Wartell, who's joined us this evening, a couple other members who couldn't make it tonight, Mark Matson and Ron Young, and they are printed for you on the back of your program. So again, thank them for their involvement with this year's process as well. Tonight we are blessed to add 6 inductees to the Bethany Athletic Hall of Fame. We will feature some themes that are pretty consistent with recent ceremonies: local athletes, a 2-sport athlete, multiple all-conference, all-region, and all-American honorees, individuals who still hold high positions on career statistical lists, and 2 individuals who epitomize what this college has been founded on for almost 100 years in terms of professionalism, loyalty, skill, and dedication to the campus and the all-important mission of the one thing needful. This is going to be a pretty special evening, everyone. I'm going to lead things off tonight with an individual who is certainly regarded as one of the best in his specific athletic roles within our region, if not the entire state. When Bethany was created, the college created the Hall of Fame back in the 1990s, about the time when this individual sat at the scoring table for us the first time, a third category beyond athletes and coaches was wisely established: individuals who have given special service to Bethany athletics. John, you are certainly exactly the type of person that this category was created for, and your talents are noticed far beyond this campus. I asked our UMAC Commissioner Corey Borkert for his thoughts on your service, and he states, "For nearly 30 years, John has been a steady hand behind the scoreboard and game clocks at Bethany home events. His precision, reliability, and knowledge for each sport have made him one of the most respected game operations personnel in the region and the conference. When you think of Bethany athletics, it is hard not to picture John at the scorer's table, focused, dependable, and ever present. His commitment has helped define the high standards of excellence for hosting competition and game operations that is part of the identity of Bethany athletics." To hear more about John Baumann's service to our athletic department, here is the man who was smart enough to put him in charge of this scoreboard, former coach, athletic director, and fellow member of our Hall of Fame, Art Westphal.
Thank you, Don. You know, President Pfeiffer alluded to the fact that we're in our 99th year of the college, and it dawned on me as he was saying that I'm beginning my 42nd year here, and then you add 2 years as a student here, and 2 more years working on a part-time basis when I was a student at MSU, like kind of closing in on 50% of the years that this place has been here. They've been stuck with me, so. This has been a special night since the first one, and I've been fortunate enough to be involved in every one. It's, number one, great for me in particular to see former players back. And, you know, because I've been around so long, it seems like each inductee tonight has been, I've had the pleasure of watching. You know, Kasey I watched play here and then actually had some contact with her early in her career. Kay has bailed me out of a number of situations when we needed somebody to work at the table. Tommy Saffert used to come to our basketball camps. And when Derek was here, I told him before, I thought Derek could have played basketball for us when he was here because he was such a good athlete. And then, of course, Bob, I had the pleasure of coaching. He was one of those guys that just made me a better coach, made me look a lot better. So congratulations to all of the inductees tonight. And before I go, when I start talking about John, I just want full disclosure, okay? So John and Kay, you were supposed to be inducted last year, okay? So we're at the meeting, and you're elected, and all of a sudden, Coach Garvin says, wait a minute, we have a home volleyball game that night, and what am I going to do if John and Kay are not available, we can't play. So that kind of gives you the indication of how valuable and important these people are. Johnny B., what can we say? Who would have known that a conversation in 1996 would have brought us here tonight? Pretty amazing. And I've had the opportunity to do this a lot over the years, introduce many people, and everybody has been very special. But I have to admit, this is a real treat. And when I told my wife that you had asked me to introduce, she said, oh, he's such a nice guy. I have to make sure I go. And I think that's kind of the general theme, that anybody that knows John Baumann knows that he's genuinely a nice guy. And if you're in the close circle of friends with John, he might just have a nickname for you. So you may want to check. Some you might want to know, and some you might not want to know. So as I was thinking about John, and obviously this is the Athletic Hall of Fame, and John never put a uniform on here. He was never on an athletic team. But it occurred to me that John has an awful lot of the traits that we as coaches look for when we recruit people. In fact, John, you might have been my best recruit ever, having lasted 30 years. I think you've outlasted a lot of them. And so one of the traits that as a coach you always look for is consistency. You would like to get the same thing from your athlete every day in practice, every game. Consistency, you want to know what you're going to get. John is the epitome of consistency. You know John's going to show up, you know he's going to be on time, you know he's going to be professional, and you know he's going to do a great job. So there's a similarity. And then I think another similarity is that as coaches, we always talk about our athletes, that when you're away from Bethany, you're still Bethany. And you still represent Bethany in a first-class manner. And you heard Don allude to what the commissioner of our conference said about John and how he conducts himself. And I have something that I'd like to share with all of you from actually a friend of mine. Believe it or not, he's a basketball official, and he is a friend of mine. But this guy's the only basketball official from Minnesota that has worked the Division III national championship game and the Division II national championship game, and he was a longtime Division I official as well. And here's what he sent me. When basketball referees walk onto the floor, one of the first things they do is look to see who the table crew will be for the upcoming game. A good table crew is paramount to a smooth game. A great table crew can handle anything that comes their way. Whenever I walked into the floor at Bethany or Minnesota State and I saw John Baumann at the clock, I knew we were going to have a great game. He always had a smile on his face for the referee crew. We knew he had our backs if anything out of the ordinary happened. He was as dedicated to his job as anybody could be, and it showed the entire game. Congratulations, John, on this very prestigious recognition, well-deserved. John Yorkovich, actually retired NCAA basketball official, one of the best. That's the reflection, and that's what John carried with him when he would be away from Bethany. Now, also to be here and to be an athlete, you have to have some talent. And it's always amazed me at the talent that John has. I think, Coach Garvin, you can correct me, but I think when John decides to retire, we might have to hire, it's one of those deals, we might have to hire 2 people. Because John not only does the score clock, but he does the individual scoring on the sides of it. And it's been my goal for years that once a basket is scored, to be able to look at the scoreboard and say, I beat John. He didn't have it up there yet. And I have yet to be able to do that. He has the individual basket already computed. And so it might take one person. Most places, one person does each of those things. And then the other thing with John is he can be in the gym on a Saturday night in a highly contested game, cool, calm, and all over everything. And then next morning I go to church and John is brilliantly playing the organ at church. There's just not a lot of those people out there. And then when you combine that talent with the dedication. John works at Gustavus, he works at MSU. These people, it's not a common thing for schools to go look at people working the scorer's table at another school. But it is normal for John simply because he's just that good. He's just that good. But he's always said Bethany first. When MSU offers him that NIL money, he's saying, no, I'm staying at Bethany. And when somebody offers him another game, he's going to do Bethany first. And there was a situation involved with our holiday tournament a few years ago. Jake Creer reminded me of this. It was the day after Christmas, and we're getting ready for the holiday tournament, and the scoreboards don't work, and I am mechanically and technically challenged. I have no chance of ever finding out what's wrong with this. We call John. He's in the gym within an hour, and within another hour, he's got everything figured out, and he just acted like no big deal. But he was dedicated enough to Bethany to do that. And I have one more thing that one of John's good friends sent in. I was happy to see John Baumann be selected as an inductee in the Bethany Athletic Hall of Fame, and rightly so for his faithful service lasting over 25 years for Bethany Athletics. Back when I began as a student at Bethany in 1997, I remember vividly wanting to get involved in Bethany athletics myself, doing scoreboard work. However, you were already utilizing John's talents, and I knew I would be second in line. But somehow I was graciously invited to join the Bethany athletics with John as a work-study student under his guidance. It was during those great times doing the scoreboard for volleyball and basketball games with John against our great rivals at Martin Luther College and other two-year schools that made the job so much fun working with John. Who would have thought that after my time leaving Bethany in 2001 that John would continue his work in athletics? That's the true version of a faithful servant and strong advocate for Bethany Lutheran College. When the service award was formulated, I think John Baumann's name was attached to it. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome you, John, to the 2025 class inductees of the Hall of Fame here at Bethany. Congratulations.
Boy, I don't know how I'm going to top this. Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for their consideration in including me in this year's Hall of Fame. While it was truly an honor to be considered, it's also very humbling, of course, as Art and Don Art has alluded to, that I never really put on the uniform here. I did do it when I was in grade school, but obviously things didn't go so well. And, a lot of times I was riding the bench, and there's a certain guy over at my table, I think, that knows a lot about that, about riding the bench. So, last month in one of our chapel services here at Bethany, the scripture lesson for the day was from 1 Corinthians 12, verses 1 through 6. And when I looked at this up in my Bible Gateway app, the heading above it was entitled, Spiritual Gifts, Unity in Diversity. And verses 4 through 6 say thus, there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are differences of ministries, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of activities, but it is the same God who works all in all. And the speaker for that day pointed out that all the activities of our life belong to God, whether it's in the sacred or in the secular realm. And we do them to the glory of God, whether it's in the church or whether it's even in our daily lives. While I may not have been blessed with the athletic ability, my coach in my grade school, and I went to a parochial pre-K through 8 school, realized that I could be used for a different purpose. And so my last 2 years that I was there, I became student manager, so I get to help fill the water bottles, take the stats, and eventually towards the end of the year, as we got closer to the MLC tournaments, they would have me come do sessions with the game clock. So that's kind of how that got started. And then eventually after I graduated, then I was asked to help do the home games for my grade school, and I also did some JV and C squad games over at my high school. And of course, you know what happened when I got here. I'm sure that most of, if not all of you, have heard the expression, there is no I in team. In fact, there was a period I remember in a couple of the seasons where the Bethany volleyball team had on the back of their warm-up jerseys, less me and more we. And of course, those of you that have coached throughout the years, probably that was the same, the same sentiment. You know, it's not just an individual effort, it's a team effort. I know, Barry, you've seen this throughout the years whenever you've interviewed players and coaches, how, you know, if they've had a great game or a great career, how just quick they are to credit their fellow teammates, their fellow coaches, and so on, for putting them into the position where they are. And that says a lot about no I in team. And I would say it'd be the same with the personnel behind the table. So when Pat ran into me in campus this last spring and broke the news to me that I was going to be in the Hall of Fame, I was just like, whoa, I didn't think that was ever going to happen, especially since I wasn't even a student athlete. But as Art mentioned, you know, they also did do the service award, and sorry, you can tell my public speaking skills aren't too great, but after Pat and I had talked for a while, and I was heading over to chapel that day, and then all of a sudden my first thought was, well, wait a minute, what about Kay? Because, you know, obviously I've been doing this for a number of years, but, you know, she's been here a lot longer than I have. I mean, you can see her accomplishments on the program. And I suppose, Pat, if I would have asked you if Kay had been there, you probably would have remembered, oh yeah, that's right. Because I know you didn't remember offhand how many or who all was in it, but then when Jake came and talked to me a couple of weeks later, and then I heard that Kay was going to be in, I said, good, because in all honesty, I would have been disappointed if I had gotten in before you, because again, you've been here longer than I have, and of course your contributions, you know, beyond the table have just been outstanding. You know, having worked a lot of volleyball and basketball games over the years, there is a lot of talk that goes back and forth between us. You know, we got to make sure everything's correct, especially when it gets to the end of the game. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, the score matches, everything matches up, and everything's good. Now, it's hard to believe I've been doing this for 28 years, and, you know, if I was to go into every little memory, I think Don would be trying to look for the hook to pull me off the stage. But I mean, seeing all the changes that have happened throughout the years, from being a powerhouse JUCO D1 school to going to an NCAA D3 school, and the growing pains that came along with that, you know, hosting different regional tournaments in volleyball and baseball, and even our men's basketball team, like the last year or so of JUCO competition, we were able to host the regional. And, you know, to having just men's soccer when I first came here to Bethany, to having women's soccer start up just right after I graduated, and then seeing the addition of golf, track and field, and cross country. The days of the rivalries between us and MLC back when we were still a two-year college, and of course all the crazy banter that went back and forth between the student sections. And of course seeing, you know, today, seeing all the students come to support all the teams. I mean, you know, just being in the gym these last few years and seeing the raucous crowds and all the support is just unbelievable. And even these past 10 plus years, once the teams started making it to the NCAA tournaments, you know, when the softball team in 2013 was the first team that made it to the NCAAs, and then a few years later, men's basketball would make that run, and then women's and so on. And then to see baseball and softball also make the tournaments. Those have been a lot of fun to watch over the years. And even the facility improvements. I mean, you know, Derek, you obviously remember the days back on the old soccer field where the activity center now is. And of course, the new and improved soccer field right next to it. And then, of course, moving the baseball teams out to what was then Franklin Rogers Park. And now, of course, ISG Field. probably one of the, if not one of the best facilities, especially in D3 baseball. I think, Brian, you would probably agree. And then, of course, just recently seeing the softball team move from out by the seminary out to Thomas Park over at Mankato East. And if you haven't seen that, take a drive by there before you head out this weekend. It's a really awesome facility. And finally, I'd like to say, it's been a lot of fun watching a lot of great players over the years throughout the history of this college. And several of them made it to the Hall of Fame as well. In fact, one of my classmates about 5 or 6 years ago, Amy Sauter, was one of the inductees into the Hall of Fame for being a three-sport athlete. And then there's two more that are here tonight who I've gotten to see, in Kasey and Tommy, with all your actions on the floor. Those have been a lot of fun to watch as well. And obviously there will be a lot more to come throughout the years. So to the rest of this year's Hall of Fame class, to Kay, Tommy, Kasey, Derek, and Bob, congratulations also to each one of you on your upcoming induction into this year's Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Pat and Ryan, that's good news. We just heard John commit to many more years behind the scoreboard. So we got one down. Okay, you're not off the hook either, so we'll get to you later. I've always found one of the more unique features of our Athletic Hall of Fame are the number of female athletes who have excelled not in just one, but sometimes two sports, and our next inductee adds her name to that list this evening. Arriving at Bethany from Lake City many years ago, Kasey Schlicker, as we knew her then, made immediate contributions on our golf team, and she became an immediate nightmare to opposing coaches on the basketball court. To share more about what Kasey Walker meant to our women's basketball program is her Bethany coach, Lyle Jones, and he will be up on the video.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be with all of you tonight. I would like to congratulate all the inductees on their special night. Kasey, also, I want to thank you for asking me to do your introduction. It's truly an honor to do so. It was also an honor and a privilege to coach a player like you. I'd like to talk about Kasey as a person and as a player. You can look at your brochures in front of you with all the stats and all the awards that she's gotten, but there's more than just stats to this inductee. I've coached a lot of great players and a lot of All-Americans over the years. Some were extremely fast, quick, strong, very athletic. Some were loud and flashy. They would dazzle you with their dribbling or their really good shooting. Some were trash talkers. And some had larger-than-life personalities. And then there's Kasey. She would be the first to tell you that she wasn't like that. I always perceived her as reserved, quiet, and you know what? A little shy. The moment she stepped on campus, it was clear she was a different type of player and person. The first practice, she confirmed why we recruited her so hard. Kasey's approach to the game was methodical, steady, disciplined. She had a toughness about her that just kind of burned in her, and you don't find that in a lot of players. She moved with purpose and poise, and what was interesting is she just never got rattled. Strange thing about Kasey is that if you watched her play, you might not notice her until the game was over and you looked at the film and the stats, and she had a ton of points, rebounds, assists, great defense, dominated and controlled the paint and the opponents, and executed our game plan. And yes, I truly believe she intimidated her opponents. That's an impact. Now, a coach once told me that great players make it look easy. And sometimes great players make it look like they're not even on the floor. not noticeable in the game, but dominant. That was Kasey. I have to talk a little bit here about Kasey's attributes. Again, shy, quiet, reserved, but physically tough, aggressive, and strong. Relentless in her play. And my favorite attribute was her mental toughness. She was effective and efficient in her style of play and also in the execution of that. Mostly, though, too, just a great teammate, helping freshmen in practice or talking to them about the game. You wanted her on your team. That was Kasey. From day one, she went to business in an intentional way. She never wasted a step. She never took a moment for granted. Every drill, every practice, every class, I think she gave it her all. Funny thing is, I always remember her with this warm, kind smile. She did it off the court. She did it in warm-ups. And then quietly it turned into a fierce competitor once the ball was tipped. Yeah, a kind heart was much different on the court with her. When the whistle blew, she was locked in, make no mistake about it. The job she had in front of her was going to get done. She just showed up day after day, year after year, with an unmatched ethic and a heart full of purpose. I think the most important thing about Kasey on the personal side was her faith. Her faith was the center of everything she did. She lived it. You could see it. She lived it in how she treated people, how she handled her success, and how she pushed herself to be the best. And she did that without boasting or even wanting attention. She shied away from that. Whether she was on the court or in the classroom or in the locker room, her faith wasn't a side note. It was front and center. That was Kasey. Now, I think I have time for a quick story here about Kasey. We really wanted her at Bethany, and I recruited her hard, and I employed probably every resource I could to get her. And one was Pastor Otto, and I believe Kasey, he confirmed you. His daughter played for me, and I asked him one day, and he said, yes, I'll help you with getting Kasey to Bethany. But, he said, you're going to have to pay. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, if she comes to Bethany, you're going to owe me 2 cases of beer. From a pastor. I agreed, and I said, all right, let's go. Long story short, I paid up. But I'm always wondering and thinking, did Kasey tell him that she chose Bethany and I got duped out of the deal? But it's still the best money I've ever spent on beer. Now, Kasey, an All-American, a scholar, a steady presence, a servant leader, great mother and wife. You represent everything good about college athletics. Your presence made the program, the college, and myself a better coach. And tonight we're proud to say, welcome to the Hall of Fame, not just because of what you did on the court, but because of who you are. Tonight we celebrate the career defined by excellence, character, and faith. Kasey, welcome back, welcome home, and welcome to the Hall of Fame.
Our next inductee, Kasey Walker.
I'd just like to say thank you, Jake, for all the hard work that you put in for this, and thank you to the committee for selecting me for this honor. However little I feel like I did all of that. Thank you to my husband, Colin, and my family for making the trip up here with me from Stillwater, Oklahoma these days. Luckily, my kids love to travel, so they're happy to do it. And thank you to my parents, Wayne and Joyce, who have always and still do support me and encourage me. And I definitely wouldn't be here without you. So, still surprised right now, and because 20 years ago I'd never thought here I'd be back and standing on a stage like this. But my older brothers wanted you to know that they definitely taught me everything that I know on the mean streets of Lake City, Minnesota, population 5,000. But I think that what I remember most from my younger years is my dad coaching me and my brothers and my younger sisters, and then officially during some summer leagues and stuff, and then unofficially just always asking us if we're out in the driveway practicing and doing what we could. And my mom making sure that she signed us up for all the summer camps when you had to go to sign up, not when you were jumping on the apps like I get to do these days. And they were at every game they were just there. They're always there supporting us. And when I got to Bethany, they made it to all the games that they could on the weekends. And so they were just very supportive always. But how did I get here to Bethany? I think the first time I came, I was probably to watch my cousin Nathan Hartzell, which I think may be close to you guys. Yeah, so that was probably the first time I was on campus. And my mother always wanted us, my parents went to DMLC, and they always thought that the Lutheran education was important and would be beneficial. So she always was pushing for it, along with Pastor Otto, which made my speech. I think that was the first time that I met Lyle. We went to RCTC with Pastor to watch Jenny play, and then we talked after the game. And then the rest is history. I did wait, I think, to sign my letter of intent until I knew that I'd received the Youth Soccer Scholarship, because every little bit helps. And so I was set. My cousin was going to be coming the same time as me, so I didn't have to worry about a roommate, and it was going to be great. Of course, when I got to campus, then I had more roommates, and because there was another freshman coming in, and Lyle wanted her to feel welcome and stuff, and she wasn't as invested maybe, but she still wasn't invested and left at semester, so hope that wasn't me, but otherwise, college sports is a step up from high school, as many of you guys know. And when the season started, we only had 8 players, and one of them wasn't healthy. And so we were going hard, conditioning at practice, and I just remember being exhausted, honestly. Getting in my dorm room and doing homework, and then crashing. It didn't matter what my roommates were up to. I was tired. And then the second semester, I signed up for calculus, 8 o'clock, 5 mornings a week. And my best friend wanted to sit right in the front row. But we survived. And thankfully, with Ashley and another friend of ours, we studied, we made it through. And Elizabeth, our other friend, she said, "Why don't we take differential equations?" And we said, maybe not. But I guess if your friends are asking you that, you're hanging out with the right kind of people. So I still feel proud of the player that I became from my senior year of high school to my freshman year of college. I definitely grew a ton as a player. But it was challenging, and I just heard my daughter Lucy tell somebody about school. She said, "Well, it's challenging, but it's hard," and that is definitely how I felt about playing. So it wasn't all good. There was obviously you missed a block out, you missed whatever, but then you get pulled, maybe, if there's someone that could come in for you, which wasn't often. But I do remember seeing, I think it was probably the championship, the SEC championship, and I missed a big block out. And so Lyle pulled me and stared at me to my seat, and that didn't happen again. So anyway, it was just a really great time playing basketball here. I regret we lost to MLC both of our years, and then we didn't do great at regionals, but overall, just a really great time. And then golf was not planned. I played in high school. I wasn't that great. I didn't think, mostly probably because my younger sisters, Katie and Kelsey, they seemed to just they started after me and they were doing great. It seemed effortless for them, but I know that they practice hard. So when Coach Dedlow asked if I would be interested in golfing, I was like, are you sure you're talking to Kasey Schlicker, not any of the other K Schlickers out there? But eventually he persuaded me. It wasn't a lot of pressure because I did have quite a heavy academic load. So it was mostly just fun. And I would say the best thing about college golf as opposed to high school golf here in Minnesota is that happens in the fall. So you get all the fall colors and you're out on the course and it's like beautiful fairway and it's beautiful and fun and stuff. I would say the worst thing is that nationals are in Daytona Beach in May and it's a little bit hot and a little bit humid and a lot sunny. And I don't know, I've worked on my tan the last 15 years, but I remember during nationals, I was slapping on the sunscreen every 3 holes. It's just coming off. So it was nice to get to the beach at the end of the day. And we just had a good time. I do remember Coach Dedlow seemed to smile a lot more during golf season than he did during basketball season, which I don't know if anybody else can remember that, but so here we are tonight, and it kind of just coming full circle, and now I'm the one signing kids up for sports and camps and swimming lessons, and my husband Colin and I are teaching them about the one thing needful, and we're going to church and doing the devotions and the Bible readings, teaching, and I'm just thankful that I was able to play in Bethany, make lifelong friends, and learn lessons. And now I have this honor from you too, and I can say that I'm in the Hall of Fame. Thanks.
If I was going to put together a list of memorable basketball games involving one of our 3 Mankato high schools over my lifetime, the come-from-behind win by Mankato West over Red Wing in the 2004 Class 3A state title game would be pretty highly ranked. Yes, it would, Tommy. Not too long after that championship celebration, Bethany basketball fans were delighted to find out that the catalyst for that win would be staying home and wearing a Viking jersey. Tommy Saffert, you look great in a scarlet jersey, but I'm going to be a little biased when I say you looked even better in Bethany Viking red. By the time you set aside the Bethany uniform for that final time, you had etched your name across our 4-year record book, and it is still there today. Here to introduce Tommy is his former teammate and our current head men's basketball coach, Pat Garvin.
Thank you, Don, and thanks to everyone for being here tonight. And thanks to Jake Creer for all of his work with the Hall of Fame banquet, reiterated by President Pfeiffer and Coach Westphal. It is a special night, special weekend here at Bethany. When Tommy first reached out to me and asked me to introduce him, my first thought obviously was honored, but pretty undeserving. And also part of me was like, why me? It certainly couldn't be to tell some of these stories, like hotel night in California on a Christmas tournament trip, or when I spent 4 months working at Vivint trying to teach them how to golf every Sunday afternoon. Certainly couldn't be to tell Hollywood stories. and most definitely not to draw up Texas on a whiteboard. I know that. But then it kind of did dawn on me what it was going to be about, and it was very similar to my role when I was a freshman and Tommy was a senior. Shut up, stay out of the way, and get the ball to Tom. Tonight will just be to just get the microphone to him. But in all honesty, it's an honor to be here tonight, recognize Tommy. Few things you think about when you think of Tom: legacy, leadership, and loyalty to a program. You come in as a freshman, you're pretty clueless to a lot of things. You really have no idea. Small town Minnesota guy, you just show up to campus, you think you're really good, and then you find out in a hurry that's not really true. And one thing you can recognize is who actually is pretty good. And Tommy definitely stood out in that. As a matter of fact, I remember going back to the dorm multiple times, talking to my roommate Derek Peterson and being like, man, I don't even know if he's trying, and he's kicking my butt. Like, I got no chance to play here. And eventually, though, you kind of get to know each other. And another thing that stood out to Tom is his business-like approach and his relatability to everybody. You gotta understand, Tom's senior year, there was 18 guys in the program and 12 of us were freshmen. And Tom's legacy by the time he was a senior was pretty cemented. Obviously, dominated at Mankato West, was off to a great start, 3-year career so far at Bethany. He could have big-timed each and every one of us. And we started, I think, like 0-8, and that might have been generous. It might have been a longer losing streak than that. And you never got that vibe from Tom. Tom never big-timed you. He treated you like your brother. He was all in. He was loyal to the program. He was loyal to each guy in that locker room, and that meant a lot, and that's the thing that has stuck out to me about Tom. The number one thing that stands out to me about Tommy, though, and it still holds true to this day, was it was never about him. It was never about him. Going back to when he reached out to me, one of the main reasons he wanted me to introduce him tonight was he thought it would be a cool way for the current program to get connected to his program, to his teams back in the day. He thought of the current guys on our Bethany roster on his Hall of Fame night. That's Tommy. That's what Tommy's about. That means a lot. I talk to our guys right now a lot about being unselfish and outworking people. Again, that's Tommy and what Tommy meant to this program. An ultimate compliment that someone can do when they leave a program, when they leave a place, right, is you leave it better than you found it. And again, that's what Tommy Saffert did to the Bethany men's basketball program. And that's why, Tom, you're a Hall of Famer. You're a Hall of Fame dad, you're a Hall of Fame husband, you're a Hall of Fame son, friend, teammate, and now officially a Bethany Athletic Hall of Famer. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming up the man with the most famous high five in Bethany basketball history, Tommy Saffert.
Thanks, Pat. That was really good. Pat, when we talked about this a few months ago when I asked him to speak for me, he mentioned he had never done this before. I said, well, this is going to be a good practice run for you. With the success the team has had the last few years and probably the longevity that you're looking at, I think you're going to do a few more of these over the next few decades at Bethany. Basketball is also a funny game. We were both point guards when Pat came in. And if you saw us walk by, there's like a foot gap in our size. So different skill sets, but it was a pleasure to be able to play with Pat. Thank you to the Hall of Fame committee. I recognize so many faces. It's been great just to be here tonight and see everyone. But what a great honor. Appreciative to be here. It really was not something that I ever expected or thought about, right? When you're playing sports, you love the game. You want to compete. You want to be out on the court. You're never really thinking about this sort of event happening or this sort of honor. So truly thank you. It was kind of rainy, so we didn't get to walk the whole campus, but even just walking through the building before we came in tonight brought back so many memories and just like that sense of calm and home. right? I spent so many hours in here in my 4 years that it was great to just be back in the building today. And also a special thanks to Jake. Jake reached out to me multiple times throughout the summer to make sure that, we were aligned with who was going to be able to make it tonight, making sure my family and friends were all, taken care of. So appreciate that, Jake. Going back to Pat, Coach Garvin, when I was deciding who to ask, you actually were a really clear, obvious choice for me. Not just to tie everything together, but, you and I, we only played 1 year together, but we've maintained our friendship. We've been supportive of each other in our careers and our family lives. You've got your 2 beautiful daughters. I've got my 3 boys. It's been fun to watch you chase your dream. You traveled to Arizona for a year or 2 right out of school, made your way back to Mankato up to MSU, and then eventually landed the gig here at Bethany, and I think things are going pretty well. Multiple championships the last few years. I feel like the program's in great hands. Going back a few months when we got the news, it actually was also Pat who called me. I think we were cooking dinner. It was taco night or something like that, right? And Pat texted me. And, our generation, we text. We're good at texting. We're not great at making phone calls. And Pat says, "Hey, I'm going to call you." I'm like, "Oh, man, what is going on? Something's going on, right?" And he said, "Put me on speakerphone." So I put Pat on speaker, and he gave me the news that I was being inducted, and it was just a great moment for the family. And it was funny because our boys are there, and our oldest is almost 2. He's too young, but our 6 and 8-year-old were asking questions, right? They said, "What does that mean? What's the Hall of Fame?" Those are really cool questions because they can be kind of deep, right? People appreciated the success that you had as an athlete on the court or the field, and they have good memories of what you did. And then my 6-year-old last night, we were laying him down for bed, and I loved it because, I thought we kind of had got around to what tonight was going to be. And he was like, "Dad, is there going to be a bounce house?" So, the message maybe didn't get all the way through, but we're still trying. So, as Don mentioned, I grew up in town here. That's the 2-year-old. And I always loved sports, and specifically basketball. Just the action of the game, physicality of the game. I loved playing. I loved making a shot, and just that magic of you can do that. Because if you don't practice it, it's actually a difficult thing to do. And one thing Coach Jettle used to always do when we were warming up, we'd stretch, right? We'd stretch before practice, and he would kind of mess around shooting shots before, and if he would make one, he'd make this little joke and kind of like a little quippy voice. He'd say, "Old memories." And we still make that joke to each other if we see each other. I don't know why that stuck, but even if I'm at the park or in the gym now and I make a swish, in the back of my mind is Coach Jetalo kind of doing this sing-songy old memories. It's just funny, the stuff that sticks with you. My parents didn't bless me with great height, but they did instill in me a strong work ethic and a competitive drive. I feel like whatever success I had in athletics and in life, it was just the fact that I loved the competition. And basketball, brings out a lot of that. There's only 5 people on the court for each team. You can really have success no matter what your size is or your skill level is. And I also have a special note in here. My mom wanted me to say that all of my athletic abilities came from my mother. So I made sure to take that down. I remember you used to say that all the time, Mom. I played for Mankato West for a few years. We had a lot of success, including that state championship that Don mentioned. When my senior year was done, I had to decide what to do because I knew I wasn't going to make it to the NBA, right? But I wanted to keep playing basketball, and there I had visits with different junior colleges in the area, Division II schools, Division III schools. Some of the D2 schools, it was always kind of funny. Even in an in-home visit, the pitch was kind of like, "Tommy, we would love to have you. You can walk on." And it's like, well, yeah, I could, but I want to go somewhere I can play. I want to go where I can be valued, where I trust the people that I'm working with. And I had known Coach Jetalo for most of my career because of the summer camps that we had for youth ages all the way up through high school, and then also the high school summer league. So I knew him for 5 or 6 years prior to this, and it always felt like someone that I could rely on, someone that I could trust. And he also had 2 aces up his sleeve when it came to his pitch. One, we were going to Hawaii. So my freshman year, we actually had a tournament on Maui, the island of Maui, and that is a great sales pitch when you're talking to an 18-year-old kid from Minnesota. And his other one was he just had great guys on his team. So he asked me one day, he said, Tommy, do you want to come play open gym, which basically, I think it was the North Gym. But we came up here, and I played with the team. So that's where I met Alfonso Mayfield, Monty Bourdain, Ross Libby, who's here tonight. Ross, it's great to see you. Mike Rosine, DeJuan Grant, and a whole bunch of other guys, and, great personalities, people that you could tell you would have fun with, play basketball with, and also learn from. But Alfonso Mayfield stood out. If you know the program, Fonzie was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2017 after an incredible career. He was the best basketball player I ever got to play with for 1 year only, but the story of our season tended to be Fonzie was amazing, and we were all trying to just help support him. As I reflected on my career, you can talk about all the games, right? 100-some games, whatever the stats were. A few of the games stood out, but I always noticed that a lot of times what you remembered is a hard practice or stuff off the court where you're just hanging out with the team. But I will call out our first game that we had was a preseason game against Winona State. And we went to Winona State. So if you don't know, in the mid-2000s, Winona State was the Division II champions in 2006. And we went to their place to play them for their preseason game that next year. They brought back multiple All-Americans, had a great team. And the week before we played them, they actually had a scrimmage up against the Gophers and beat them. So I loved it, right? We went into that cauldron. Their place was rocking. Fans were loud. We should have lost by 50, right? We're the Division III school. They're Division II national champs. And I don't remember the exact score. I think it was about 10 points. Fonzie and DeJuan were great. The team fought. It was a really cool memory, and to kind of just show, it doesn't matter what a ranking says or anything like that. Just go play, right? Derek and I were talking before this. One of the things you always remember is the hard practices where you're not entirely sure if there is an end, a real end to the practice, or if the goal is just to see if everyone's going to give up. We would run the ladder where you start at the end line, you go to the free throw line and back, and the half court back, and all the way. And you have to do it in like 40 seconds or a minute. I don't remember what it was. But I always loved that, right? Looking back now, it's hard to have some of those physical challenges in life, right? I'm 38. I have a career in business. I sit at a desk a lot of times. I kind of miss that sometimes. Even though it was hard in the moment and you wanted to quit, that's one of the things that for some reason, that always stuck with me. Coach Jetalo also did a great job, not just, trying to get us to be better basketball players, make sure we experience something in our time with Bethany. So we traveled to Hawaii, we traveled to California, we went up to Connecticut and New York City over New Year's. That was a really cool trip for that team. I think that was sophomore or junior year. We had some great wins, some buzzer-beating wins. Against UW Stout, Jeff Zimmerman hit his 10th three-pointer. We beat him at the buzzer. I don't know why they'd leave the guy open who has 9 three-pointers in the game, but they did. And he hit his 10th, and we won. Andy Wills hit a game winner at Northwestern in the conference tournament. Just, some great games amongst, what were dozens of wins with the program. That trip up to Connecticut and New York, I'll never forget. We were driving a conversion van, and Coach Jetalo was driving, and, we crossed, I think it's the Brooklyn Bridge, and, you see the skyline, and it's beautiful. It's New York City. And he is, happy and, almost singing. He's all cheery, driving through traffic, and we're so close to people that you can't even see the cars next to you. And it's just this moment that I'll just never forget, how he was just calm and chill. And it was a great experience being in New York City, doing Times Square there with the team. We went to the Basketball Hall of Fame that trip. Really cool time. Another thing we always did is we'd work concessions at the Twins and Vikings games, so you'd get all these kids up at 6 a.m. and hike them up to the cities and tell them to hand out dome dogs and try to pour beer for the guy who's paying $12 for a beer. But that's the stuff that, I always think back on. It's not necessarily the big shot or anything like that. Like I kind of mentioned, it's hard to replicate certain things in life. I love the excitement of a game day. I love when the crowd is packed and you had people here excited to see you play, whether that was a home game or an away game. I was blessed. There are certain games where things were going really well and the crowd would chant, "You can't stop him." That's so cool. I don't say that to my kids or anything, but like that's something that it's hard to top, right? I'll never forget Steph against MLC, the alley-oop. We threw a lob against MLC here at the home gym, and Steph went up and caught it and threw it down, and the crowd was going nuts. Like there's a few memories that are just never going to go away. Pat mentioned my senior year, his freshman year. That really interesting year, right? A team full of freshmen, and I think it was not 0-8, it was actually 0-12. It was rough, right? We started practice on October 15th, and I don't know if we won until like mid-January. And these were not all one-point losses. Some of them were really hard. But it's a testament to the group that we didn't quit. We kept showing up to practice. We were looking to try new things. Coach implemented a new offense for us that year, and it changed how we played. I think we finished something like 8-4 in conference. We had a good team by the end of the year. And then that group of freshmen ended up winning the championship 2 years later. And I always like to think that part of our struggle as a group there helped those guys grow and remember that moving forward. So just looking back at my time, a lot of games, a lot of minutes, points, all the statistics, all of that. But more than anything are, some of the lessons learned. Don't be afraid of hard work. Treat people with respect. Show up on time. All the memories that I've shared and just the relationships that we have. I am like many other alumni of Bethany. I met my wife here, Bree, who's dancing with our 2-year-old there. We met here at Bethany. We've been married 12, going on 13 years. We've got 3 boys of our own, and our oldest, Franklin, starts his basketball career up soon, this weekend actually. So, it's more about the relationships. I see all the guys coming back here tonight. I appreciate that so much. When Pat notified me of the honor, I reached out to the group and said, if anyone can make it, that's great. But I know we all have lives. We're all busy. We got families and things to take care of. But to see people take time out of their day to show up is awesome. And one of my last points here before I wrap up, individual awards, to me, it's never the goal, right? An individual award is more a reflection of the team's success and great support systems. So thank you to my family, my coaches, my teammates, my friends, everyone who supported me throughout my career and who still does. Thank you to all of you for being here, especially today. And thanks again to the committee for this wonderful honor. So let's have a good night.
And that gives me a nice little segue into our next inductee. Our next inductee pulled off an extremely rare accomplishment for a fall athlete at a junior college. He was a 2-time captain, both as a freshman and a sophomore. And in doing a little research on Derek Laliberte, he might have arrived in Mankato from Coon Rapids in August of 1998, thinking that he was pretty much just going to solely focus on a soccer career, but it seems he left with a whole lot more. And if you doubt what I'm saying, see what you think after hearing this statement that I found that he made at one point. Bethany Lutheran College is the best decision I ever made. While most of my friends looked at bigger colleges, I followed my dreams of fulfilling my athletic career. Although the decision seemed insignificant at the time, looking back, It's impossible to deny that this one decision to enroll at Bethany Lutheran College set the course for nearly every subsequent decision that has led me directly to where I am today. The school is beautiful, the faculty and staff are tremendous, and the Christian theme education, coupled with my experiences on the pitch, were everything I never knew I needed. I love that statement. At that age in life, everything I never knew I needed. That, my friends, is what this institution and our single unifying mission of the One Thing Needful are all about for our college-age students still today, 99 years. Introducing Derek tonight is his longtime friend, going all the way back to their days here at Bethany, George Kohlmann.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is George Kohlmann, and it's truly an honor to be here tonight. I'm extremely humbled and so proud to introduce our next Hall of Fame inductee. The former Bethany Lutheran College Vikings two-time team captain, former MVP, soccer superstar, number 11, Derek Laliberte. It's been extremely exciting to have the pleasure to say a few words about Derek. And before I invite him to the podium, I'm going to share a few stories, some anecdotes, and maybe some memories, just so that I can prepare you to get to know him a little bit better. First, I want to describe him as a player. And I can speak by memory from seeing him play, from talking to his teammates, a couple who are here tonight, and from what his family has told me about him over the years. Derek was the absolute full package, almost a prototype if you were to design a superstar soccer player. He reminded me of a 1998-99 David Beckham. 6'2", tall, athletic, bleach blonde hair, model looks, and a force to be reckoned with on the soccer field. He played forward, and he was an absolute premier goal scorer. He made the game extremely exciting to watch. He had a rocket of a shot. I have a little story about that because I got a front row seat and was introduced to just how hard his shot was about 27 years ago. We walked through that door, and Derek had a soccer ball, and I had never seen him play before. So I volunteered my services to be his goalie. And he said, "You want me to just set up about halfway?" So he was at about the 50-yard line of this basketball court here. And once I got into the net and turned around our makeshift net just in front of the wall, I saw him approach the ball, and then I heard what sounded like a firework to the side of my head. Now, I think he shot it, but it was like a 90-mile-an-hour knuckleball. And that was the end of our 15-second soccer game. So, Derek could run with speed bursts, moving and deking out opponents, creatively ball handling and making them look foolish. His humor could not be suppressed, as when he would deke some opponents out, he always reminded them verbally of what he had just done. An absolute fierce competitor and the player you love to have on your team, but you hate to play against. What's so eye-opening about Derek, and this makes me think of Derek Laliberte, the teammate. I called him a couple of times over the past few weeks to prepare for this, and I tried to get him to talk about himself. And I could probably do a 20-minute presentation on the soccer teams that he played on and the players. I think I know more about Ryan Caproon, Luther Kromschrader, all of his teammates. So he was very selfless in spite of his excellence on the field. He was always thinking about the team. One of my favorite stories about Derek is, and it sort of goes to support what Don said, coming to Bethany was the best thing that he never knew he needed. Before I had ever gotten to know him, actually it was one of the first times I met Derek, I was coming back from the library, and you have to go down a little set of stairs to get back to the boys' dorm. And I saw a tall, blonde-haired kid with a red soccer jersey on, down in his knees, and I couldn't help but notice, but he had his head in his hands, visibly upset, and he was crying. And I was pretty surprised by that. So I went over to him and said, "Hey man, are you all right? Are you okay?" And he proceeded to answer the way I think a lot of us college kids did the first time we were away from home. He said, "I just don't know if this place is a fit for me. I think I may have made the wrong choice. I don't know. I'm not sure." And isn't it a testament to life that we don't know the clarity of what our path's going to be? I remember that moment like yesterday, and I never would have guessed that 27 years later we'd be celebrating your Hall of Fame induction. Fantastic. The second story I want to share always inspires me. As I got to know Derek and he fought through some of his early battles, he was catching his stride with the soccer team. But one thing I think I wanted to know, and we all want to know about great players, is what's their perspective? Who's the team out there that's unbeatable? Who's the best in the country? And he didn't hesitate to answer that Iowa Central had been undefeated, a top-notch JUCO organization, and basically he said they're kind of like the Russian hockey team in 1980. So lo and behold, he mentioned that they're playing them next week, and unexpectedly, I took a walk over to the soccer field because I saw the lights were on, but I wasn't paying much attention to whether it was the boys or the girls playing. So I meandered over to the opposing team's net, and I set up camp behind there. And I took notice of the scoreboard. Well, the two teams that were playing were Bethany and Iowa Central, the mighty Iowa Central, undefeated. Well, there was about 7 minutes left in the second half, which means 7 minutes left in the game, and the score was 0-0. And I remember thinking, man, my friend just told me this team they're unbeatable. I mean, they're undefeated. They're one of the best in the country. As soon as I thought that, I see number 11 come across the middle, deke out two defenders, and place one of those 90-mile-an-hour shots right past the goalie. 1-0, Bethany. I got to see David slay Goliath, and it reminded me a little bit of when Rocky knocks down Apollo Creed the first time in his career. It was a tremendous moment. So to further tell you a little bit about why Derek is so deserving of this placement in the Hall of Fame, I do want to talk about some of his accolades. Derek played in 1998 and 99 and was the captain as a freshman and a sophomore. He led the Vikings in scoring both years that he was here. He amassed an unbelievably impressive 37 goals and 19 assists and was voted MVP his sophomore year. His accolades include two-time All-MCC, All-Region 13, and he was named to the Junior College Athletic Association All-Region team as an honorable mention his sophomore year. When kids come to Bethany or any two-year school, they have a slight chance, but a big dream to play Division I in their sport. Derek Laliberte was one of the few who made that dream come true. After Bethany, he went on to be a two-year Division I starter at Indiana University, Fort Wayne. If you're talking about points per game at Bethany, I checked the schedule and they play roughly 20 games a season. That may give or take a few with the change from junior college to being a four-year school now. But his points per game would have been, based on those numbers, an astounding 1.4. To put it into some perspective, Emcee and Ronaldo, their point per game is .70. Derek Laliberte is one of the greatest soccer players to ever come out of Bethany Lutheran College. But he's also an incredibly God-loving and faithful man. He's a devoted husband, a loving father, an extremely successful marketing and business professional, and he's extremely charitable. He's been known to buy new basketball shoes for every player on his city's local high school, and they can choose any pair they want. He does videos, photography. He supports not only his children's teams, but the teams around the community. And he's just a wonderful steward everywhere he goes. A little note to his children who can't be there tonight. Avery, Chase, you've got a very, very special father. He was an incredible athlete and is an unbelievable man. Derek, Frenchie's proud of you tonight, and so is your dad. And they're all looking down on you, and we're all proud of you. It gives me a tremendous deal of pleasure to introduce to you, newly elected member of the Bethany Lutheran College Hall of Fame, class of 2025, number 11, forward, Mr. Derek Laliberte.
Thanks, George. I'm going to stick to the script, but I heard this Maui thing at the beginning of the when Tommy's talk, and I'm sitting here thinking, Rob, we went to Cloud County, Kansas, in a people movement. But thank you for that, George. So I want to first congratulate my fellow inductees. It's an honor to be up here celebrating this with you. When I first thought about what I wanted to say, I got to read, or we're going to be here too long. When I first thought about what I wanted to say, it was easy because, I have a million stories, I think like most of us do, about playing here. And then as sort of tonight got closer and closer, it wasn't so easy anymore because for those of us who know this place, I think like I do, realize that it's played a much more significant role in our lives than we thought it did. I met my two best friends here. George, I met him walking to English literature at my first and last, emphasize last, 8 a.m. class. And Luther playing soccer here as well. We've stayed in touch nearly, every week, every other week for 25 years. And to show you how remarkable that is or how special this place is, I live in Indiana, Luther lives in Idaho, and George lives in Florida. I think that stands for something. So when I think of Bethany, going back to what Don said, that's pretty significant. This is a significant place. I didn't come to Bethany to make the national team. I'm certainly not Messi or Ronaldo, no matter what George says about those stats. I went to Bethany because I wanted to play. I want to keep playing. I grew up, I played a lot in the backyard with my cousins, Todd and Troy, who I know wanted to be here tonight. who ended up playing professional for 20 years. And their sisters, Shannon and Amber, who are both Hall of Fame inductees across town for Minnesota State. And then, of course, my brother, who always kept us in check, Jesse, who I'm incredibly proud of, who couldn't be here tonight. For as long as I can remember, I knew that I loved this game. Man, did I love this game. And for the majority of my life, it's really been at the center of it all. Soccer had offered me so many unique opportunities, from traveling to Europe to play with my club team, to making ODP, to making all-conference in high school, to Bethany, and eventually playing Division I soccer in Indiana. Up until 2023, I played men's league until I realized my body was saying, you might want to slow down. Hip surgery will do that. I always believed that I could score. I just knew I could score, and call it luck, and that's fine. It likely was, but let me be the first to tell you that luck is a skill. And I got to tell you, I made a career out of predicting where the ball was going to be at the exact time I need to put it in the net. So yeah, I'm pretty lucky. There are too many stories to tell, so I'm going to tell you one, maybe a couple, and if you want more, I got millions of them, so pull me aside after this and I'll tell you more, because there's just too many to tell to do it justice. But this one in particular is about the tallest, biggest, most intimidating teammate I have ever had. Art, you might remember Pele Cisse. Pele, not Pele from Brazil, Pele from Bethany, who was like 6'5". This is the, also, I just want to say, this is the PG version of this story. Let me preface by telling you, I was a very subtle trash talker. I did talk trash, but subtly, sort of what George said. I sort of like to let my game do the talking and then be like, gotcha. And this, this is what happens when you play the game. But we were outside of Chicago. Maybe it was like Elgin. I'm not exactly sure, but this sweeper, the last defender on the field, if you're not familiar with what sweeper means, he was dishing it to me all game, just in my ear, which I thought was really interesting considering I was putting this kid on display. And that's not even being arrogant. I'm being modest. He was terrible. Sorry if you're watching this. And I'm pretty sure by halftime I had a hat trick. And at that point in time, I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to just give him a little slight. Just kind of polite, but not so polite. And I just said something to him. And he didn't really like it. And I kind of turned around, and he punched me so hard in the face that you could hear from the other side of the field Coach Peipel's F-bomb from all the way across the field. Let me tell you, hold on, settle down. Coach's F-bomb was frick. And he's over there going, frickin' A! What the frick? I don't know if that's still your F-bomb, but it was pretty funny. Pele, Rob immediately subs me out of the game. We were handing it to this team, but Pele, as I'm walking off, everybody called me Bird. Then it was Birdie, and then it was Bird Dog, then it was maybe Dirty Birdie as I was leaving, but everybody called me Bird. But Pele looks at me and he goes, don't worry about it, Bird. I saw that. And I'm gonna ... This is the PG version. And what he said to this defender, I'm telling you, as I walked off the field, this guy looked like he was about to die. And, those aren't the stories I think that for me, they're not the stories that I thought I would remember, but they're the stories I always find myself telling people. And Pele was interesting because I didn't realize Pele was on the basketball team. Pele didn't really move that much. He just was a really big target up there, and he'd get the ball and do something with it. But then I would go to Midnight Madness, and Pele's dunking. I'm like, what? You move way better on the basketball court than on the soccer field. And let me just say, that story and how great we were, especially my sophomore year, outside of being recruited to play in Indiana, my confidence playing here really has never really fully matched how happy I was playing here. I think that's what I meant to say. I think I speak for all of us. Anyone who has ever played this game knows you're only as great as how well you lift the players up around you. And I was lucky to have some pretty incredible teammates, really, and friends throughout the years. You know, playing club ball, guys like, and I just want to say this because I don't talk to them that often, but if they did see this, you know, I'd want, you know, my teammates growing up, Paul and Kelly and Opp and Howie and Mark Birch and Danny Mack, Bobby Shower, Pele, and of course, Ryan Caparoon, Cappy. Caparoon was an All-American our freshman year, and I'm pretty sure led the team in assists both years. And there's a reason I was able to score a lot of goals, and a reason I was lucky, and a big part of that is Ryan Caparoon. And as well as he could dish the ball to me, it probably wasn't the best part of his game. The best part of his game was the throw-in that he could throw from anywhere on the field into the box right to my head. And at 6'2", I could jump up and grab the ball and throw it in the net. Ryan, I am up here because of you and other great teammates, and for that I'm very grateful. Thank you for coming tonight. Bob Goff, if anybody knows who Bob Goff is, he's one of my favorite authors. He says, when you're looking for a plan, God sends a person. And every single time I asked God for help, someone showed up. I am the product of great coaching, great teammates, because the people that God put in my life while I played this game all had one thing in common. They coached through confidence. And to my two coaches here, they both wore cleats at practice. Coach DeJoy, my high school coach who made it out tonight, was the kind of coach who would invite guys over to watch UFC. This is like UFC 2 and 3. I mean, this was a long time ago. He wouldn't let you walk by him in the hall without saying, "What's up, stud? You're going to score tonight." He built everyone up around them, and he never tore them down. A coach who once compared our team during a pregame speech to killer whales that were about to take down the great white sharks of Anoka High School in sectionals. And we did. You were the kind of coach that your players would run through a brick wall for. Thank you for being here tonight, Coach, and I think I speak for all your former players. Guys I just mentioned, you're the stud. It's not just us. And then, of course, we have Coach Pipel. This whole speech is Coach Pipel. We're not even halfway through it. I first met Coach at an indoor game during the winter after my senior year. Now, after my senior year season ended, and this guy walks up to me wearing jeans and a leather jacket. And I just want you to know that if you ever see a soccer coach recruiting, they are in Adidas indoor soccer shoes and a track jacket. There are no exceptions, every single time. But then there's Coach Pipel talking to me about Bethany Lutheran College in jeans and a leather jacket. It's not lost on me for a second that I'm the first of your players, and I can promise you I won't be the last inducted into this Hall of Fame. But there has never been a coach in my entire life that has made me believe in myself more than you did at the right time. Every kid who plays anything has undeniable aspirations. And just as every kid does at some point in their life, they come to this crossroads where they realize there's a possibility that might not happen. And I would bet none of those players were ever coached by Coach Pipel. And I'll tell you this one story because to me, out of all the stories, it embodies the definition of what servant leadership is. And even more so because I don't think that's what Rob's intent was. I think that's just who he is. That first month, the month I probably ran into George crying on the steps, thank you for that. It was awesome. It was rough for a lot of reasons. If those who know me know what those reasons were. I was struggling, really struggling with obviously being away from home, and it was only 2 hours, but struggling with the idea of being named captain on a team that I didn't really think was that good. I didn't know how to lead. It was really tough on me. And I remember Coach had us run this mile after practice, run around the field 4 times and just head into the locker room. And after the mile, I remember sitting there with my hands on my knees, again, crying. I don't remember crying that often, but I just told you I cried twice. So, Rob comes up just like he normally does, and I don't remember the entire exchange, but I remember the way that you talked to me, and you took a knee to really get down on my level and understand what I was going through. And you really began to really start this process of building me back up and my confidence. And I just remember this one line where you said, "Derek, this entire team looks up to you." And as he said that, he said, "And I look up to you." Those are pretty powerful words. Up until then, I just thought leadership was just as much about the optics and a title. But in that moment, realizing it has much more to do with vulnerability and transparency than a title will ever have. And I've always tried to live by that example. When I think of what a coach should be to their players and what I wish so much for my kids to have in their careers, I try to think of your example. And something tells me for a very, very long time after this, you're going to be hearing the same theme over and over as more and more of your players are inducted into this prestigious Hall of Fame for years to come. Before I go, and you finally get to shut me up, I want to say a few words to my stepdad and my mom. So, Tom, thank you for all you've done for me, for my brother, for my mother. It doesn't go unnoticed. It never has. Your enthusiasm for life, your enthusiasm for this game is contagious. I'm proud that you're my stepdad, but most importantly, I'm proud that you're just my friend. To my mom, your name should be on that plaque more than mine. I am without a doubt your son, as I'm crying. Everything good in me is from you. And she didn't tell me to say that. Thank you for not only your confidence in me, really for helping me get through school, for coming to literally all my games, not just in Mankato, but Fort Wayne, Indiana. If you don't know where that is, it's pretty far. It's 10 hours away, and it's not an easy way to get there, and Mom was always there. But also for demonstrating to me what it means to be a great friend and to lead when you have no other options in your life. You're the first person I would call when I had a bad game or a good game, and you're the first person I would hug after the end of the season. I love you, and I'm grateful for everything. To my wife, 20 years on Wednesday. This is our anniversary trip. Want to go to Bethany? And to my kids back home, out of everything I am, good or bad, there are only 3 things I've ever wanted to be. First is a godly man. Second is a family man. And the third, well, that's pretty easy. I just wanted to be a soccer player. Thank you, Bethany, to the Hall of Fame committee for this award. It is truly one of the great honors of my life. Thank you.
If you remember back to when we started our evening, our Hall of Fame members are either athletes, coaches, or those who have provided special service to our athletic department. In the case of our next inductee, her resume actually shows all three categories. For Kay Guse, as we knew her then, her resume started right here in this gymnasium as a freshman with standout seasons on the Viking volleyball and basketball courts. Then God took her life down a different path where athletic competition was no longer an option. So with the encouragement of some Bethany personnel, Kay found a new way to stay engaged, not only at one time serving our college as a coach, but also using her knowledge of athletics to provide an especially unique skill. Working in a spot where she can literally determine the outcome of games, postseason honors, conference titles, and national tournament berths, Kay, your service to our campus, our teams and our opponents, and our past and present athletic associations has been unparalleled and exemplary for 20 years. And if you don't believe me, here's what our conference commissioner, Corey Burchard, had to say about Kay. For over 4 decades, Kay has been a pillar of excellence and dedication at the scorer's table for Bethany volleyball and men's and women's basketball. Her steady presence, professionalism, and passion for her craft have played instrumental roles in establishing Bethany as not only one of the premier institutions for game management and hospitality, not just in our conference, but also in the region. Simply put, Kay has been a key part of Bethany game day experience and continues to positively impact the external image of Bethany and its athletic department. Here to introduce Kay Gottschalk is her sister, Jean Kirick.
Good evening. First and foremost, I want to congratulate all the inductees. When Kay asked me if I would introduce her tonight, I was a little hesitant, but quite honored at the same time. And as Don had mentioned, and you've got all the information in the brochures, Kay's had quite a career here at Bethany. Not necessarily playing the sports she loved, but being the scorekeeper that she has. So with you already having that information, what am I supposed to talk about? You already know everything about Kay. Well, I can tell you a few things. Kay's very competitive, and that's probably what has helped her to get to where she is today. During her high school years, when she was playing basketball, she wanted to be challenged at practices. I tell you, I could give Kay a little bit of run for her money at practices. If I had the opportunity, she would ask me to come and practice against her. So we had some fun days in that. Since Kay isn't busy playing sports, but keeping books, she does like to play cards. Anybody that plays cards against Kay, you know how competitive she is. So Kay has had to overcome challenges from little on. As a young child, she was diagnosed with epilepsy. For those of you that don't know, epilepsy causes them to have seizures. So she would do things that she didn't realize she was doing. And I can remember this one very vivid at a basketball game. She's down here at the end of the court. Everybody else is down here. The official blows whistle. Beep! Yeah, he wanted to tee her up for it. Well, after a discussion with the coaches and the refs, they realized that this was a condition and they would let it go. So I don't think Kay got the technical that time. I don't mention this for sympathy because that's the last thing Kay would want, but for people to be aware. As spectators, we don't realize what the athletes are going through when they're out there on the courts or fields in some cases. So just be kind to anybody, the coaches, the refs, the players. Everybody needs a little bit of compassion. Kay's Christian faith and beliefs have carried her through those tough times. After Kay's first year at Bethany, as was mentioned, she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I still remember getting that phone call. She's like, hey, I've got good news and bad news. Of course, with epilepsy, she was unable to drive. Well, she informed me that year that, hey, I can finally get my driver's license. But I'm done playing basketball. That kind of hit me too, because at the time she was here at Bethany, I lived in Lower Mankato, North Mankato. I made many trips up that steep hill to come watch basketball and volleyball games and enjoyed every minute of it. Kay's connections didn't stop with Bethany here. When she graduated from Bethany, she stayed on campus here while she attended Mankato State. She was an RA here at the campus. And just tonight when we walked in, she informed me that she also worked in the kitchen serving breakfast. She ran the concessions for the ball games, and she managed the canteen. So as you can see, Kay's been basically, Bethany's her home, second home, I guess you'd say. She hasn't left. Kay and her husband, Gary, they now live in the Janesville community. There was a short period of time that Kay did leave when she graduated from Mankato State and moved to Red Wing for a short time. But her basketball playing days followed her. Or I might say, Kay, they caught up to you. I don't know if you ever told Mom and Dad this, but you did share with me. Kay, being the competitive person she was, I don't know if she is trying to cut down her drive time to and from Red Wing, but yeah, she got pulled over. I don't know if it's an officer or a state trooper, but she handed over her license, and he goes, "Oh, are you that Guse that played basketball?" Yeah. So, of course, he went back and ran her license and come back and says, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to give you a warning tonight." So her basketball playing days did save her a speeding ticket. There's many times when I'm talking to Kay, hey, what you got going on? What's going on? Of course, during the school year, once you know, she's going to a basketball game, volleyball game, someplace, either here at Bethany, Janesville Waldorf Permanent High School, Mankato State, or someplace where she'd be doing the books. If she wasn't doing the books, she'd be at church singing. She does belong to the choir there. As mentioned earlier, Kay and her husband Gary lived in the Janesville community, and they are involved with the Meals on Wheels, and they run the Janesville Community Food Shelf. During the summer, Kay is an avid gardener and sells the produce at area farmers markets. So with that, one more thing. I was really giving Kay a bad time about why do I need to introduce you? The Bible says it all. And not only that, the last week or so, there was an article in the Waseca paper about Kay being inducted into the Bethany Hall of Fame. So she had shared that with her siblings through a text. So I texted her back and I said, now I really don't need to introduce you. Everybody knows everything about you. Well, and I was only kidding, Kay, but Kay got to work. She sends me another text. Well, here's something that everybody doesn't know or hasn't heard. So I'm going to read this part of it. Kay had her best game when it mattered the most as they beat the number 1 seeded Worthington Community College to secure a spot in the state tournament by scoring 34 points and pulling down 14 rebounds. She went on to lead the team with 16 points and 20 rebounds against the Brainerd Community College in the state tournament. Now, she never said that they won that game, so I have a feeling that they didn't. I don't know. So with that, Kay, I'll let you share the story, but let me introduce my sister. I'm very proud of her, Kay Guse Gottschalk.
And yes, Jean, we did end up winning that game. Thank you for that introduction. One of the reasons that I chose Jean to introduce me was not only was she my challenger and made me more competitive, but as a graduation present from high school, I received a scrapbook from her. It had all the articles of all the games that I played in high school in it. And that meant a lot to me, that she would do something like that. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee. Thank you so much for this honor. I feel so privileged to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with this special group of very talented athletes.
and scorekeepers and clock runners. So thank you very much. I would like to thank Coach Nyhus, though she's not here, but without her coming and recruiting me, I probably wouldn't have ever gone to Bethany, and I wouldn't be where I am tonight. So I'd like to acknowledge her for that. I would also like to thank all the other staff here at Bethany for giving me such a positive experience throughout all my years that I've been involved with Bethany. Even though I continued classes at MSU when I graduated from here, Bethany was always my first home. I went over there for classes, but I always came back here and did all my other activities. This is where I felt more comfortable. I really enjoyed it here. I'd also like to thank my teammates. We had a lot of good times. Our basketball team may have been small, only 8 players, but we were mighty. We beat the teams by 70 and 80 points in our first 2 games of the year that year. So that was a lot of fun. Because of only 8 players, we recruited a couple soccer players to join us, namely Jeff Rohrman, who's in the Hall of Fame, and the late Joel Lobby. They came and challenged, or Joel is the one I got to play against because he was taller. He challenged me a lot and made me a better athlete because of it. Thank you for Coach Roth for pushing me to be his assistant coach for that year that we took a very talented group of young ladies to the state tournament and got runner-up in state for it. That was a lot of fun. More importantly, I'd like to thank my parents. Mom, thank you so much. Dad, who's in heaven, thank you for all the running you did for me. Picking me up after practices, being there for all my games, supporting me. For my siblings, for being there, supporting me. And my husband, Gary, and my son, Jeff, thank you so much for sitting home alone at night so that I could do the job I love to do. Especially this last year, Gary, that was a tough one. Double trips to town every time I had a ball game, so that I could do the job I love when I couldn't drive myself. I really appreciate that more than you know. And to my friends and family, thank you so much for being here and supporting me on this special night. It means more to me than you'll ever know. I'd also like to thank Art and Jake for pushing me out of my comfort zone by doing shot clock at the high school tournament. Spread my wings a little, makes me a little better. And John, you've been at my side for almost 30 years now. I really appreciate that because I've done books, different places, JWP, MSU, Bethany. You make Bethany's game so much easier. I really appreciate you having you on my side because he's the one that'll call out every sub that goes in. Every time the libero's serving, libero. Calls out all the subs that are going in for basketball. He just makes the job a lot easier. Thank you so much. And lastly, but not most importantly, I'd like to give glory to the Lord. He's gotten me through some rough times and some good times. And he is the one thing needful. So I'm glad to be walking with my Lord. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and have a good night.
Rugged, durable, relentless, tenacious, reliable. Great attributes if you're looking for a football player. But in the middle of the 1990s, Bethany basketball fans were treated to watch another hometown hero of his own right here make his mark, and certainly not only on our campus and on the court, but left it also in the Viking record books. A former Mankato East Cougar, Bob Schweim owned the glass on both ends of the court for the Vikings on teams that won almost 80% of their games during 2 seasons of play. After 2 standout seasons at Bethany, Schweim then put his talents on display in Northfield for St. Olaf, and then transposed his knowledge of the game into a successful high school coaching career for 20 years in the Twin Cities. Introducing Bob Schweim tonight for his induction is another talented Viking basketball player on those squads, his teammate, Bukata Hayes.
Good evening, good night. So I wanted to say, I don't know if everybody else got this email. I think Jake just sent it to me to say I have to stay within 5 minutes. And so I will, Jake. I just want to say, I don't know if everybody else did, but as a point guard, you have to follow the rules, I guess. So I'm here to introduce Bob. So one of the things, and you said it earlier about reliable, and I would say consistent. One of the things about Bob that I think is special is you know what you're going to get with Bob. It is not going to be anything different. There's no pretense. He is who he is. So when he played basketball, I think if you just look through the 2 years he played here, I want you to look at the rebounding totals from both of those years. 235 for the first year, and the second year, 237. When you talk about reliable, when you talk about consistent, when you talk about relentless, like, I don't know if you get any closer than that, then you average the same amount, you got the same number of rebounds 1 year to the next. Like, that's Bob. That's who you're going to get. We knew every time we went on the floor, we didn't have to worry about what we were going to get from Bob. We have stories about he didn't warm up with the rest of us like the rest of us did. But we knew once the ball was tipped, Bob was there. Relentless, I think, is really important, too, because he relentlessly pursued the basketball. In particular, even when it may be detrimental to a highlight reel. So there are a couple of times that we can talk to about Bob, in particular one in a film session. Coach says, Bob, look at this rebound here. Bob, look at this work you did. And Bobby had a double-digit rebounding game. One possession he takes off when we're playing this team, and a guy comes like out of nowhere over his back. Bob reaches up. He's about to get another rebound, as he typically does. And the guy kind of takes the ball from him, like dunks on him. And we're all looking, and we're like, well, we're surprised because Bob gets all the rebounds. But in film session, we knew exactly the play coach was going to, right? He went to that play, not because it was extraordinary on the other guy. Bob was so consistent that any possession he didn't get the rebound when he went for was like an oddity. It wasn't something we were used to. Many times we would actually know if Bob was close, we can get to the positions we were supposed to get to because he was going to get the ball. Guys were running the floor before we secured the rebound because Bob was there. And I think for me, what I realized as I read through his bio here is that, this will be the second Hall of Fame you will be inducted into, and I don't know how many folks can say that. So when it comes to consistency, each time he's put on a uniform, whether in high school and here at college, it's ended up with him being in a Hall of Fame. Consistent. That speaks to who he is. And then I lived in Mankato for about 20 years post my time at Bethany. I didn't realize it at the time, but now I do. My sons played at East. Bob was always shooting me a text at different points saying, hey, sorry, Tommy, go beat West, right? Yeah, I mean, East Siders. But also, he was following the games. He was following the games, following how we were doing. Proud of his alma mater. He's been extremely proud of his alma mater here at Bethany. And I think for me, the last thing I'll leave with is while he was an extraordinary competitor, relentless, an incredible teammate on the court, I think my shooting guard, Omar McMillan, and I can attest to that Bob has been even more consistent as a friend. That at any moment, we knew if Bob reached out or if we called Bob, he would be there. That Bob would always show up when the time was needed. And so Bob, as your point guard, right, a lot of those rebounds weren't because of my misses. I just want to say that. But as a friend, man, appreciate you, love you. It's been 30 years of just connectedness, which I think is incredible to say in this time. I think we learned a lot from each other. I think from me and Omar's standpoint, you also were one of the folks who welcomed us to this campus and welcomed us to this community in a way that continues to have us come back to Mankato for various reasons. So not only were you an ambassador on the court, but you're an ambassador for this community, for this college. And so welcome to the Hall of Fame, and let me introduce Bob Schweim.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start by saying a look Boo gave me when George was talking about Derek. And he's like, he's a cross between Lionel Messi and Ronaldo and Conor McGregor, and he's gorgeous and everything. Boo looks at me and he's like, you're like a washed up Ben Affleck in the UPS, man. I'm like, yeah, I agree, man. I agree. This cat's legit. So, you know, and I say that with all, you know, humor too, because that's kind of what my career was. It's a garbage man. And you guys all know, being athletes, being fans of athletics, a garbage man is a term of endearment. I went from a swingman at Mankato East in some of the lean times of East basketball. My best friend is back there. Clint McCullough, yes, we set the record. 1-22 as our sophomore year. 6-18 our next year, and then Dave Johnson came along and we're all right, we're 500. During that time, my rise as a basketball player was pretty static. It just went along like this, and you know, I was pretty good, I guess. And I had this coach, apparently, when I was 9 years old, named Art, and he was from Wisconsin. And he tells me this like 20 years later. Do you know I was your coach at the Y, half-court basketball? Oh, that's pretty cool. So when I was a little kid, he was my coach already. But as I went through, I wasn't always the best basketball player at Mankato East. I became that, the swingman, whatever. But let me tell you something about Mankato East at that time, and Don Westphal said it perfectly. Our starting lineup for basketball was the point guard was our starting corner. The posts were the outside linebacker and the All-American middle linebacker. The forward was an all-city defensive lineman standing right back there. And sometimes our punter was started. And then there was me, the free safety. And that was our basketball team. So yes, when Don said that football pedigree, yes, it was. Problem is I got pretty good at football. And that tenaciousness and whatever, oh yeah, that was in the days of horse collars were still legal and clotheslining people, and that was not nice. And the thing, you know, about it is that getting to about my senior year, ready for the story of contention, coach? And you know this one. I talked to my sister, Christine Schweim back then, and I said, Chris, I don't think Art wants me. I'm like, I used to get up, you know, mow the lawn and during the fall, and my dad would run out. Anybody knows Leroy, man. He took me to everything. Rest in peace. He's looking down. And he would come out, Bobby, Bethany plays tonight. Oh, hurry up and mow the lawn or shovel or whatever. And We sat right back in that high corner right back there every game. I got to go see these run and gun masters dunking, psychotic coaches on the sideline. I always was like, oh, Westphal's so mean. He's always so mad. And then I later learned that the dude never swore in his life around kids. And I'm like, wow, geez, you look terrible on the sideline. It was always that little rolled up paper, right? But I'd sit back there and we'd watch this show. Bethany basketball was a show when it was JUCO. Man, could we fly and get up and down and dunk and swat and whatever. And then they had these people called the Gumbies, which was worth the price of admission. You'd go and watch these Gumby people, and I'm like, what are they doing? They're ripping on the other team, but having fun. Gosh, we were loving this, and I thought I was going to go to Bethany until my senior year. Division II schools were all over trying to recruit me for football, and I was like, Chris, I don't think Art wants me to go anymore. Like, am I just kind of a football guy now? And he hasn't talked to me forever. It felt like we were breaking up. I'm like, he didn't say anything, and he's going to deny this. He probably had some things to do, like coach. I don't know. But Chris must have put something in his ear, because the very next week he joined me for dinner down at my house, and he said, Bobby, hey, let's do it. He knew. I grew up in his camps. Nothing else I wanted to do is to play here. That's what I wanted to do. And he signed me on. And from then out, it was 2 years, the best years of my absolute life. I went from, I looked at all the people in Mankato. It's hard. Tommy will agree to this. When you're a person of notoriety in Mankato, think all the people we have to thank, right? I had it written, I was going to just shoot your name out, but then I see 2 or 3 of you here. Names like Wartell just comes up. Hey, Bob, you gave me more 6-inch sandwiches than anybody in my life. He'd give out these little Subway things for player of the game. And we were so bad at basketball, Bob, you won player of the game again. Yes. We have a bunch of them still in my scrapbook. I didn't even use them. I thought they were so cool. So, Wartell, Brandrup, Trongard, Courier, Chad Courier, stud in my history. Coaches and teachers at Mankato East. So I turned into a basketball player, but somebody said earlier, I forget who it was, you're not a very good basketball player. I think it was during Tommy's intro. You're not a very good basketball player until you realize who else you're teamed up with now. You're looking at 3 of them right over there at that table that are better basketball players than me. Bukata Hayes, Omar McMillan, Jameis Powell, these 3 are some of the best players this school has ever had, and I got to play with them. Art put together a team, I don't know if he tried to do this or not, but he put together a team that was like the flamboyant, cool captain point guard. Everybody loved Bukata Hayes. The human highlight reel, Omar McMillan, God, he's gonna go all over the place and play defense sometimes. But he's flying up, he's dunking and everything. We knew you were quick, man, you just didn't wanna be sometimes. And Jameis Powell, this tornado that came in my sophomore year, and I'm like, what is this cat now? You'd get the ball and he'd be on you like a spider. And I'm like, geez, right? We needed all that. All these guys were different. And we had the big guys, these are the names of my teammates. Z, Cheeks, Big Nate, Pike, Boo, Omar. And then we had Longshanks, who was a 6'9" huge kid from Redwood Valley. And it's funny you talk about Hartzell. Yeah, sorry, Hartzell, if you're watching this. He was 6'8", Z was 6'9", Breitkreitz was 6'9", and I had to teach all these fools how to rebound. That was the best part. Longshank, Seth Breitkreitz, had a thing written up about him, and he goes, Bob's been a big help teaching me how to get boards and stuff. And I'm like, this kid could bench 400, and he was 6'10", went D1. I thought that's pretty cool. Because yes, rebounding is an art. Ask Dennis Rodman, he was my idol. Not in his regular world, but yes, in basketball he was. So he put together the best team that never won a title. We apologize to Art until the day he passes away. Don't ever take that as you. We were so mad. Our hearts were never hurt more than when we lost and got upset in 1996 because we knew it was the end of us. And everybody loved to see us. They came to watch us, not Mankato State. We were the show. We were averaging 101 points a game. And my job on that team was to make sure those guys got second shots, to make sure those guys kept being able to do what they do. That's a garbage man. And I loved it. I embraced it. I went from swingman to a dude who just didn't care. And when I got rebounds, it felt good. Boo's right. He'd leak out. I'd grab that thing, baseball, pass it. Art never complained that I'd get one-handed rebounds, make them sound cool. Pow, every time. It was fun. We had a lot of fun together. And I loved play. Yes, I played kind of like football. I could score. I don't want everybody to keep thinking I'm this like thug that just beats everybody up and whatever. I was not like that. I could score a little bit. But, I'd do anything that it took. I could guard a point guard, the best player in the nation, a 7-footer, the other power forward on the team. I loved it. Absolutely loved that stuff. So, what kept me going was, again, this community. Pastor Moldsted's here. All these Steve Yeager. Steve, where's Steve at? Is he still here? I never even knew what he did. I was like, I would always be sitting there before the game watching the girls or whatever, and, I'd be sitting and Boo's right, I hated warm-ups. I never went in the locker room until there was only a couple minutes left. People would start looking at me from the stands going, are you out? Are you injured? No, I'm just listening to Fear Factory and getting ready. And that's what I'd do. But Steve Yeager was always there, hey, Bob, what are you at tonight? And he'd just pop up, and I'd be like, Steve Yeager, awesome. I like talking to you. I don't know what you do, but you're always around. I think he was admissions. I don't know. But he was awesome. Everyone around, Ron, Younge, Don Westphal, Jedlow, Weldon, my gosh, the list goes on and on and on. And again, when you grew up in Mankato, you tend to forget people, but my parents absolutely made me what I am. And my family's here. Kelly, who scored 1,000 points, and yes, I only had 941, whatever. I was sick 5 games in high school, so she has the bragging rights. She was a star at St. Clair. We actually were prep athlete of the week in the newspaper the same time, and we didn't even know it, that we'd be married someday. Son's up there in Pine City right now watching the live stream. My daughter is sitting right there, and hopefully she ends up being a lot better than me. A lot of people say, does she have that thing that you have? That thing? And I'm like, I don't know. And she knows it. She's got to prove it. My last thing that I'm always going to say to her, make it very difficult, Ellie, for the coach to take you off the floor. Make it very difficult, okay? Even if you're not hitting shots, whatever, do something to help the team. Always do something to help the team. I loved that role. I'm glad with all these superstars up here that are all Americans in Division I and everything, I am just as proud, just as proud to do what I did with so many great men and so many great women when they honored you and honor me now. Just hard work. Just being willing to go, I'm not going to get to do this anymore. Boo said, would always say, he's right. That ball was around you, get out of there, man. Omar is the only one who ever tried to challenge me, which was fun. Omar actually is a really good rebounder. He went to St. Scholastic, awesome there. And Omar told me a story before we started, and he said, Coach asked him, why aren't you in there rebounding? And he goes, well, look who's in there. He's like, I don't want to get elbowed in the face. And me and Omar got into some good ones. I was always kind of egging Omar on. He hated it when I chicken winged him. Hated it. I'd always get away with that, just wrapping his arm around it, because I could go up one-handed. Omar, you broke my nose, by the way, at St. Scholastic doing that one time. I chicken winged you, and you tried to do this, and you slammed it right into my face. I don't know if you even remember that, but yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's probably payback. I was just playing pickup ball with these guys. He broke my face. But going in there, catching an Omar McMillan elbow, I think I'm still have a cracked rib today. I learned to always do this, but it was kind of fun. Elbow him in the face. He'd elbow me in the ribs. Yeah, that's what teammates do, I guess. But that's what we would do, and it was fun, and I loved being that guy. I loved being that guy. So thank you, everybody. Coach Westphal, people are going to be talking about you forever. I could sit up here for, an hour. We all could, right? We all could. It goes without saying. guy's legendary, and he brought together a group of men that are friends for life. It created a great atmosphere for Mankato, and I am very, very proud to be part of this. Very, very proud. I want to say thank you as well to my 3 best friends named Para, Burke, and Walt, otherwise known as Clint, Jeremy, and Chris. Yeah, that's their names. I think your name's Chris. Yeah, I always called him Burke. We've known each other for 40 years. All of us. Okay, those guys are consistent too, like Boo says. They're here for me today. And everybody watching that Kelly's live streaming that couldn't make it, like my mother, love you to death. And I am, again, very proud for this honor. Thank you, everybody.
To our 6 members of the Athletic Hall of Fame, just want to make sure that not only your plaques this evening, but the display pedestals, take those with you as well. Tonight's been a fantastic opportunity to induct 6 individuals who played key roles in forming our athletic heritage. On behalf of Bethany's alumni and athletic departments, thank you for accepting our invitation this evening and for the memories you've created. We wish you all of the Lord's blessings and continued success in your future endeavors. In conclusion, I'd like to remind everyone to check out the rest of the schedule for the Fall Festival celebration with the full slate of events tomorrow, and again, the worship service Sunday morning, followed by the exceptional service to Bethany Awards. Safe travels upon your trips home, and thank you for your attendance and support of our campus at Bethany Lutheran College Viking Athletics. Good evening.